Computer. Recording in progress. We're doing it. Yay. This is the most technical thing that we have ever done, right? Like we're live here, we're live here.
Yeah.
And we're live in a restaurant. We're here at the Union Kitchen today in Kingwood. But let's start. Let me rewind a little bit.
Yeah. Who are we?
This is Hopeful Hearts Podcast. And we are what are we? We are a nonprofit.
Yes.
And we aid in long-term recovery for survivors of abuse. And the Union Kitchen is doing a fundraiser for us today. So they are giving us 5% of all the food tickets for the whole day today that they're open.
5%. That's a lot.
I know, right? So June 2nd is today's date. We're here. So we've been here. LaGayla, who is the president of our board or chairman of our board, she's sitting over here quietly working, but she's been here working with me all day. We just worked here from Union Kitchen, and now we're doing this podcast. We're going to have a board meeting here. We're just making a day of it. So if you are watching us live, you can come on up to the Union Kitchen and join us. So,
yes, we're going to have dinner here. We're paying for our own dinner.
Our families are joining us.
Come have fun, and then also give back to Hopeful Hearts. So, and this is a great facility, amazing food, fantastic martinis if you like a good martini. So
I think what did their website say? It's like world cuisine with a southern flair or something like that. It's like fancy, but not fancy. Like fancy dishes that they've put a southern flair to. So it's really good. LaGayla and I had an energy bowl for lunch. It was like rice and quinoa and chickpeas and beans and salad. It was really good.
So, they have great steaks and fish and all the good things. So I'm really excited to be here and do this with them.
So I feel like we say this a lot when we're recording a podcast. Like we start off and we go, "Oh, it's been too long."
I know we shouldn't. It's fine. Nobody has any idea how long it's been.
No, right? It's fine.
Unless you've been waiting, anticipating,
right? Like you're like,
where is their next podcast?
Is it? If that's you, I'm so sorry that we've let you down. But there's just been a lot going on in both of our lives, and but we're here today and we're recording, and we asked people to send in questions. We haven't got too many of those, but we've got lots to talk about anyway. But if you're watching this live on Facebook right now, you can please send your questions in, and hopefully we'll see them. Hopefully they'll come up.
I know. You keep an eye on that.
I don't
make sure.
I don't know how this works. We're not great at the tech savvy stuff, but yeah, I just told Shannon, I read that June is Narcissist Awareness Month. Now May was Mental Health Awareness Month. So there's just lots of things that we can talk about. See, how do I make that smaller?
So mental health awareness, I mean, that affects all of us. So with Hopeful Hearts, if you're new to this podcast, if you're new, listening in on a live, watching us, hello, I see we have a few eyes on us. So please, any questions you want us to just bring up, answer, talk about, by all means, please do. Or text, if you happen to know LaGayla, text LaGayla if you don't want your thing out there live. But
I got my phone handy.
We help all that have been through, men and women. We work with adults, 18 and older, who have been through mental, physical, sexual, emotional, spiritual abuse. Much of what we've been through kind of encompasses different various abuses. So, most abuse encompasses emotional abuse. I think emotional abuse is tied to everything. But mental, you were talking about in May was mental health awareness. And I think, that is something that we missed out on, that we really should have maybe done something specific to that, because I do believe that it's very important. So many that we work with, or just in our family, my family in particular, that go through various aspects. My gosh, we were at I had all my kids over yesterday. I have my oldest going into medical school, and we were doing a send-off for him and a send-off dinner, and we were talking about these aspects of when he was real young, he was diagnosed with certain things. I won't put it out there because I know it embarrasses him, but he's completely fine. He's going to become a doctor, but he's becoming a doctor because he wants to help other kids that were like him that were either not misdiagnosed. He doesn't say he was misdiagnosed. He just feels like at a time that maybe they just put medication on it,
Yes.
right? And not
Yeah.
take care of the situation. And I think it's important to do both in
I
some
agree.
essences, so it's a great discussion to have because, of course, I'm the mom and he wants to, give me a hard time because I, medicated. And I believe that the medication worked. So, and the medication helped. So that's a whole conversation in itself. But I do think that these are very important conversations to have. And I love how much we're growing in that conversation because, he's about to be 27 years old. This was when he was 3, when he was 4 years old, that he was, really that we were going through the thick of this and trying to figure out how best to help and support him. And he got off medication by the time he was in 4th grade. So to me, that was even a very early
Very
time.
young to
Yeah,
get those kind of
absolutely.
things
And
figured
he
out.
was able to really work on and deal through some things. And it helped because we had a smaller classroom size. We had, there were different aspects that we were able to put him through that helped with certain things, right? So,
Well, and I think the point is that with what you're saying too, is that mental health is different for everyone. So, just as your regular health is, we were talking about other health issues earlier, and, where one person, this vitamin does wonders for them, the other one, this vitamin does nothing. For one, this heart medication works, for another one, it doesn't. And it's the same with mental health. Some people say, oh, well, I went to see a therapist once and I realized therapy wasn't for me. And you go, well, once? I mean,
right.
that's like saying, I had a bite of fish once and I decided fish is not for me. And you're like, well, but there's a million different fish out there that you can
Right.
try and a million different ways that you can prepare it. And it's the same with therapy. There's no one therapist that's going to be the same. There's no one therapist that's going to offer you the same path to healing. Amongst, even if you're seeing the one therapist, um, they may have different paths to try with you. So mental health is a very important topic, and a lot of people will try to say, oh, we shouldn't be talking about our mental health issues online. Like they'll accuse people who are talking about their mental health issues of looking for attention. And I go, no, I think talking about your mental health issues can be one of the smartest and bravest things that you can do. And you know that I've said my mom went through when my parents split up, and my mom went into one of the deepest, darkest depressions, and ended up taking her own life because she didn't want to talk to anybody about it. She didn't want to be seen as crazy. She didn't want to take the medication. So,
and talking saves lives. It's why we, it's I have a voice. That's our big tagline, giving a voice to survivors of abuse. And,
yes.
And you have mentioned that all the time. If your mom had only just talked about it, spoken about it.
Right. If she had let someone know how dark things had gotten for her. I mean, we knew she was sad. We knew she was grieving, but we didn't know that she was thinking about taking her own life. And so, it's important to talk about it. And that's what we do. With Hopeful Hearts, we are here. We are not therapists. We offer one-on-one peer support. Lord knows we have been to enough therapists between the two of us. We've got lots of years in therapy, but we do one-on-one peer support. So we meet with people when they are between sessions. We meet with people who maybe need to find their own therapist, or people that maybe they've been in therapy for a long time and need a break from therapy, but don't want to give up talking about what's going on in their life. So we're there for that.
And I met with somebody, well, I didn't meet with them specifically. I met with them for a business reason. And then they end up finding out that, I always talk about Hopeful Hearts, always. And so they were looking at the website and just started watching the the podcast or listening to the podcast. You can watch on YouTube, you can listen on any,
Yeah.
podcast channel.
Yeah.
And she wrote me and she was like, this is like free therapy. I was like, well, thank you.
Yeah, it is.
But we are not therapists. We just want to do that disclaimer.
Yeah.
And also, we're right in the beginning of this show. I do want to say, you never know what it is that we might end up talking about. If you are watching, I see we have a few people on Facebook Live. If you have any questions or anything specific you want us to talk about, we'll be happy to talk about it. And bring it up. And we're not afraid to talk about hard things. But with that being said, if you have little eyes, little ears listening, you may want to save the time, put it on pause, watch us later. Just because we aren't meant for children, not really. Right.
No, in fact, I had to go back in on our YouTube because like when they ask is your material explicit? And I was like, no, we're not explicit. And then I one day went into the question and saw what explicit was. I'm like, oh, we are totally explicit.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like we are very explicit. So, but also if you are easily triggered, if you're at a place where things are very raw for you in your healing journey, you just be aware, that sometimes we talk about things that could be triggering. So.
Right. And that's not our intent.
No,
for sure.
No, we don't want to trigger anybody, but we do want to put the focus on the fact that we can get past those triggers, that's part of what healing is learning what your triggers are and learning to desensitize those triggers so that they don't trigger so fast.
Right. So then back to what you were saying, we were talking about mental health because May was Mental Health Awareness Month, but I love what June is. I think there's such a debate on this in some ways, but June is, what is it called? Like
Narcissist Awareness Month.
Narcissist
Awareness. Awareness for.
We should all be aware that we have a part of narcissism within us.
we all do, right? We all have a tish of the cyst. Like we can all be a little narc sometimes, but let's look. So I pulled up some things here about like how to recognize.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to say hi to Wayne Head, who does our DJing. He's on
Hi.
Debbie Anderson, great seeing you on.
Yes.
Amanda.
She's on our board. She's watching. So, okay. So here's a thing. It says how a narcissist brainwashes you, because I do feel like the term narcissist is kind of just thrown out there now. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you're just being a narcissist, or oh, you're just trying to what's the word? Gaslight. Thank you. Like you're just trying to gaslight me. And it is a real thing. It's not a term to be used as a weapon, we do say everybody has a little touch of narcissism in them.
Right.
We all do, because we're humans and we are designed to survive. And so that there's some of it in all of us, but
I think you mentioned the word gaslighting. Russ I wish I would have saved it for this. Russ was showing me a like a thing on Instagram or something, and it said, what is gaslighting? And and it was just a funny little, not funny, but it was like a little conversation.
Yeah.
Where the person was like, I don't gaslight you. You don't? No, you don't. Like it was a gaslighting text.
Right.
Like, are you sure? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And it's gaslighting. And that's it. I think it's now thrown out way too much.
Way too much.
And it's now become a verb.
Well, people use it like now it's like, oh, well, if you don't agree with me, then you're gaslighting me. You go, no,
that's not what gaslighting.
That's not what it means.
Yeah. Gaslighting, and here's the thing with true narcissists. I fully believe that a true narcissist can't necessarily say, I'm a narcissist. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like that they claim that they are a narcissist. So I don't think that they recognize necessarily. Are they manipulative? Yes. I think that they have a manipulative nature and that they have their ways of doing things, and gaslighting is a part of that manipulation. And, all the things that we're about to read you about how a narcissist brainwashes you. But do they do it purposefully? I don't know.
Sometimes I think narcissists don't, because they don't know, they're not necessarily doing it on purpose. It's like second nature to them. It's who they
Yeah.
are. And most narcissists learned to be narcissists because they were raised by a narcissist,
Yeah.
or they were in a very long-term relationship with a narcissist, and so they had to learn to be a narcissist to survive. But look, I just looked up gaslighting. Gaslighting is manipulating someone using psychological methods um, that forces them to question their own sanity or their own power of reasoning.
Mhm.
So it's like when somebody is changing the conversation and they're making you think you're crazy, like did I really say that?
Right.
Is that how that happened? Like they'll make you question the way a situation went down, the way you remember it,
Mhm.
even though you go, no, I know I was there. I know how that happened, and I know what you said, and I know what I said. But they'll say, no, you didn't. You said this.
Right.
And it's like, mm,
But I think, and we can go in such a wormhole
Yeah,
on
you
this
can.
because I think, there's all these different mental disorders, right? Personality disorders. There's even that one that's called it's called a personality disorder, right? And
Yeah.
that one person, like somebody like that, can have a level of where they believe their own lies.
Yeah.
Like they come up with their own
They have their own
world
story and their own
and their
world,
own,
and they believe
and
it.
they believe it so much, so
Mhm.
much. They could probably take a lie detector test and it comes out that they're not lying because they believe their lies so much.
Mhm.
And so when you have, and there's a big part of that with a lot of narcissists.
Yes.
And so when you have that and they come at you with their, I hate to say this, their truth and our truth, all
Mhm.
of that, but that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
And so but it's very, I think the key things like with this list of brainwashing that we have
Mhm.
here, I think what's so important is like number one, they separate you from your support network.
Mhm.
So a narcissist, they can have friends, they can be the what do you call
They can be
everybody
the,
loves
yes,
them,
yeah.
the joy in the room, the
Yeah.
light in the room,
Yeah, the life of the party.
life of the party, but it's very difficult for them to see beyond themselves. And then if they love bomb you, this is in a relationship specifically. If you're in a romantic relationship with
But
somebody,
even a friendship relationship, sometimes I've had people that all of a sudden it's like, oh gosh, they're coming on so strong.
Right.
Like they want to
Right.
give you gifts and they want to spend time with you and be like,
and they text you 1,000
you're
times.
so pretty and you're so wise. And I just, yeah, and you get 1,000 texts and they go, oh, I
Right.
can't.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes they get very kind of jealous. They don't want you to be, like, why aren't you spending all this time with me? Why aren't you, that should be all about me? And they'll love bomb and give you everything that you just love and desire. And then at some point, they'll slowly use that against you and start bringing in things to make you second guess yourself, second guess how you feel about yourself and how they feel about you. And then it's this slow kind of fade of manipulation.
And they can sense when the people around you see through what they're doing. So those are the first people that they want to really separate you from.
Yeah.
And they will use tactics like, even making up lies about those people, but they'll try to kind of start fights or whatever, like between you and that person to make you angry at them so that you don't want to have anything to do with them. So then they can say, well, I didn't force you to break up with that friend. That was your idea.
Yeah.
She wronged you, not me. You chose that. Which is another form of gaslighting.
It is another. Funny. Here's the quickest way to maybe recognize if you're in any kind of relationship with a narcissist is if you go, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Like if you start to think, gosh, did I really do that? Did I really think that? If you start to feel bad about yourself.
On more than one occasion. Because it's always good to have some self-reflection and go, okay, did I really handle that situation the right way? Or did I really, maybe I said it, the tone. That's different. When it's happening on a regular basis where you're going, maybe I am crazy because this is happening all the time. Yeah, that's when you have to question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We've had our relationships with the maybe I am. I don't know.
So,
Disclaimer, I don't
right.
know. But.
So when they degrading and demeaning you, then occasionally doing something positive in order to create a trauma bond. So that's big. Like when it's constantly, they're telling you what is wrong with you, what you do wrong, but then will give like just drop in a praise one day so that you're like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. Like thank you. I needed that.
Yeah. I needed that loving affirmation from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. When you are walking on eggshells all the time because you're afraid of what's going to happen, or you have fear that they are not going to approve of what you're wearing, what you're saying, what you're doing, you may be in a relationship with a narcissist. Let's see, controlling you. I mean, we kind of talked about that. Destroying your self-esteem. I mean, that really is a big thing because they make you question so much if you're crazy. And then if they are, putting you down because they want to be the one to bring you up. That maybe.
I have to we often talk about shows that we've been watching or, that focus on these, different aspects of what we deal with Hopeful Hearts. Do you know the Sherry Papini?
Yes. Have you watched that? Pam's in the room, one of our board members, Pam. Yes. The whole Sherry Papini story,
right,
which has been going on for years. Like you can find it on 2020, you can find it on Dateline.
It's the real Gone Girl situation. If you've not heard about it, there's been Datelines and 2020s and all the things.
And then like her husband just came out recently, did another 2020 where he's kind of telling like his after how, like how he's doing years after, because she just came out with a documentary.
Yes.
On HBO.
Have you watched it?
Yes.
So I'm glad we're talking about this because she is, but also,
I know, but so
there
let's back up for people who haven't seen it.
Okay, all right.
She and he,
wait,
this beautiful young couple, like gorgeous, like Ken and Barbie, in California.
Yeah.
Okay. Got married, had two beautiful children, and then she just disappeared one day and was missing for
22 days.
Yes. And showed up on a highway, like this trucker picked her up and she's freaking out. She was emaciated, had bruises all over her body, had been branded
on her back with Exodus.
And it was so weird. So anyway, she said she had been kidnapped by two Hispanic women, and she gave a description. They searched for these women. Well, then turns out no. She had been with a guy that she dated before she was married to her Ken doll husband.
Yes.
And he says that she called him that she was trying to escape a marriage that was bad. So he kept her there, and that she was abusing herself there, but asked him to do these abusive things to her. She says
that he kept her
there and abused her,
but then took her back.
Yeah.
So here's where the confusing stuff gets to. And if you're interested in stuff like this, then I really do encourage you to go watch there's a documentary on, what was it, Paramount, or I saw it on YouTube TV, so
I don't remember where
it's on a normal cable station.
Yeah.
And that was the one I think that he kind of came out with, and it was a 4-part series.
But just recently he was on 2020 where they kind of did
the whole breakdown. Okay, maybe that's what this.
So that's like
a whole breakdown. But then hers is on Paramount, maybe.
So Paramount, I was thinking it was HBO, but maybe one of those.
Yeah. And there are aspects like where I believe he's a narcissist and I believe that she is a narcissist
Yes.
too. And she does have her therapist on there saying that she has a certain personality disorder, which, as we just said in the beginning of this show, that, there's a little bit of narcissism in all of us. And when you have all of these different types of, mental or personality disorders, a part of that can come into it. And so I don't doubt that she has some aspects that have caused her to believe certain things. I think she might also be one that creates a lie and believes it.
I agree.
As if it's her, like 100% her truth.
Yeah.
Because on her special, I won't give it too much away, I guess, but her special, they did she took a lie detector test. Now she did fail one aspect, but she passed the others.
She passed a lot of
But I believe that she believes that to be her true, even though we have kind of proof that
even though there's a lot of evidence, like physical evidence, DNA.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence saying it's not, but she believes it's true.
So my heart breaks for her and for him. I mean, I think I can. So you have people saying that their relationship was toxic. I mean, I think that they both loved the limelight. I think they both loved that aspect of being perfect. I think he did really want her to be that perfect wife and to have that perfect look. And there was history of her stepping out on the marriage. And so he did a post-marriage prenup or not prenup, post-nup, excuse me, not pre, post.
Yeah.
And so I can see how that probably had her feeling, I mean, what we're pointing out here is a narcissist. Like he's putting her in a hole and making her feel like she has nowhere else to go. But on the other hand, you can see that she likes the attention. She likes, she wanted his attention.
Definitely.
And you can see that from all the past interviews that they have taped, that the police have taped, all of this stuff. So these things, I find great interest in them just because I feel that every person, there is always going to be your truth, my truth, and then the truth in the middle.
In the middle,
And I think that we do need to always kind of keep that in mind when it comes to any of these situations that we find ourselves in or that we find our loved ones in, or not ever condoning bad behavior. But I do believe that we have to really dig deep and know all the layers to somebody before we want to crucify.
Right. And even just the fact that, perspective. Everybody has different perspectives. Even, we could all be sitting in the same room and have a different version of the story because of where our seat was, so it's like you have to hear all of the perspectives, all the sides for it. All the sides in this are crazy.
They're crazy. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you will watch it and her reaction, like, "Oh my gosh, she's crazy." But in the reason, and I would agree with. I mean, I hate that's a horrible.
We should never say crazy, but
ever. But
it's crazy entertainment. I'm going to say it's crazy entertainment because it is put out there as entertainment. I mean,
let me say this though. She does the. I mean, there's certain moments where she looks in the camera.
She does. She's like,
nice to meet you. It's like, okay, Sherry, if I was to give you a little bit of advice,
I'd be like, close your eyes, love it. Yeah. Your intensity level is.
Oh goodness, yes.
I'm so judgy.
We're not judgy though.
But I think if you put when you put something out there on TV, like you go to HBO or Paramount or whatever, you're like, film me. They're setting yourself up for that.
Well, and then I hate to. I mean, and she did her own reenactment. So I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't want to be sued by
Beanie.
So
no. But here, so I think there should be a show like when narcissists collide, because it's like when usually when we talk about a relationship, it's like one person is the heavy narcissist and one person is being abused by that. But there are cases where you go, no, I think they both are very unhealthy for each other, but they're both crazy. They're unhealthy people. So here's the thing. So narcissists tend, and like we said, I don't think that they always know what they're, I don't think they have a conscious level of what they're doing, but they tend to look for people who are compassionate, overly compassionate, because they know that compassionate people are going to trust them more. Like if you are someone that doesn't give up on others easily, like you really invest in your relationships, that's something that a narcissist is going to kind of hone in on. If you are a people pleaser and you care about how others feel, that you want to make everybody happy, a narcissist is going to be like, on that.
Now we're scaring everybody.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's like, I can't
Right.
do anything.
I can't do anything. Right.
I can't.
Right. Right. I mean, it happens. Like if you are somebody that's really honest and you just believe that everybody else is honest, I kind of have a tendency to be that. Like I just assume people are telling me the truth. And I don't want to be jaded like that. I would rather believe that people are telling me the truth until I'm proven otherwise. But a narcissist will take advantage of that.
Yes.
And also, if you are generous, you're the caregiving type, you just like you want to do things for others, they're gonna kind of, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be any of those. Those are admirable qualities to have. What we're saying though is that a narcissist will, like, they're on the hunt almost for that. And they don't necessarily realize that they're on the hunt for that, but because they like to control, they feel like people who are kind and generous and trusting are going to be easier to control. So they think.
Yeah. And guys, I read something and I wish, again, we did this kind of off the fly. And if anybody has any questions that's watching that you'd rather us talk about, that's fine. But so I wish that I would have found this aspect of what I read. But I read somewhere that those that tend to have a pretty strong narcissistic nature come from situations of neglect or loving neglect in the home. Maybe where the mom or the dad, didn't give them that, a true nurturing love and attention that they needed. Every baby, babies cannot thrive. Babies need to be touched. They need to be held. They need to be loved. They need to be cared for, supported. And I think that, or what I read was that as a baby grows, and even as a toddler, as a young person, this will always happen before, you hit like the age of, think of 11 or 12 is once you've hit that age, you've been grown, right? You've been brought up for the most part. But in those early years, if you have a home that is not nurturing and caring and supportive, then they're out to look for that elsewhere. And it becomes a need to control then how people feel about them or what they have. And that's kind of where this instinctive narcissistic behavior comes from, is this need to, I have to find that love I didn't have. But I need to control it so that it doesn't, that I always have it, or that I always have that attention, or that I always have that loving and that longing for that I never was given on a normal, healthy basis.
Yeah. They say when you're like, even as an infant, there are bonding stages that we are supposed to have with our parents. And that if we don't get to that, and we don't make that bond there, then we can't ever fully mature emotionally in any of the next stages. So it's like you said, we have to go back and get that need fixed.
Right. Well, that brings up, I just brought, my husband and I were talking about this yesterday, but I have to do a quick call out to my cousin Colin who's watching. Thank you, Colin. I love you too. Um, we were talking about how if you find yourself like, so I just said that, you've been grown by the time you're like 11 or 12. I had a therapist say that to me, even just about in regards to dealing with my own children, like after a certain point, yes, you can give rules. Yes, you can give, what your boundaries are, but they've learned what they're going to learn by that age, right? So you kind of have to overcorrect, or they are going to have to want the desire to, correct their behaviors, I guess. But if you find yourself in a traumatic event in middle school, high school, often, and this is actually more prevalent in men than it is women.
Yeah.
I've read this somewhere, or a therapist told me this, that you could get stuck in that mental capability,
like that mental age.
Yeah. That's what I think they even call it, that mental age. Not that you can't go on and learn great things in college and become a successful lawyer or a successful businessman or woman or whatever, but on emotionally, like that emotional intimacy level, that's the key. And you get stuck within that trauma age of whatever happened. And so unless you don't recognize that, like, so if you find yourself in a relationship and, your wife or your husband is constantly saying like, why can't you grow up? Or why can't you, this is so immature, you're acting like this, or, I'm trying not to call out a certain relationship that I have, but
I'll say, so if you're having an argument with someone, or you have a disagreement, and whether it's a spouse, or this could even be in a work relationship, and you're having a disagreement, and all of a sudden that person is acting like they're 10 years old. Like the way they are responding is, very childish. And you're like, where is this coming from? It is likely that that person had a major trauma at whatever age it is they're acting like, so because they've never learned how to handle disagreement, they've never learned to handle trauma, they've never learned how to handle anything past the age of where that happened. So it's like you have to do, that's why we say all the time, you have to do the work. Nobody can do the work for you.
So, but that's the key, is to acknowledge, like, I could point out her problems and tell her this is what you need to go to therapy for. I could point out something.
And there's a big list. Stop.
I definitely have one.
We all do. We all have our stuff.
But the point is, the key is, if you're listening to this or watching us, whatever, and you start, the key, the best gift you could give yourself is to really think, what do I need to do in order to improve myself? When we start improving who we are, how we respond and react, and gain healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries is so key. And we need to do a session on boundaries on this podcast, and just focus on good, healthy boundaries. That shows that you're growing on up in the world, that if you can say, look, I realize that there's things I need to work on. And it's especially if you can come to a place where your relationships, whether it's, I just talked about this in our last episode of self-sabotage. Like, I was reacting in a very young way. Self-sabotaging and being like, why isn't anybody caring about me? And I kept mentioning it's the little girl that keeps popping up that nobody cared about, and that I want to keep falling back and being triggered back to that little girl, and in that mental capacity of nobody cares about me. And it's working on that will help me grow, and I can mature out of that, hopefully. I can mature out of that, right?
Yes.
So, sorry, I feel like I just got on a soapbox, but I'm not trying to call any of you out. I don't know who else watching, but
no. And that's, so if you have a narcissistic parent, like if you were raised by someone who's narcissistic, they might have said things like, well, I guess I'm just the worst parent ever. And not in a joking way, like that, a regular thing. Like if you get upset, well, I guess I just suck. I guess I'm just a terrible mom. I guess I'm just a terrible dad. Um, why can't you be more like your brother or sister?
Mm.
You know, comparing you to siblings, or why can't you be like your cousin? Why can't you be like your friend? You know, say like you're the letdown. Um, why do you have to embarrass me that way?
Mm.
Like that.
I get caught up in that because, and I love my parents, I do, but I obviously did not come from it a very, very healthy, place. My dad was an alcoholic and had his own stuff, but we always used to play it off as, oh, it's just the McGraw way. If you can't take the ribbing, if you can't take the sarcasm, then, you're not meant to be in the family, basically.
Right.
But I was very sensitive. I was a very sensitive person and always took certain things, on it as a sensitive nature. And I just remember, so often feeling like, oh, I'm just not good enough, or I'm not the best, or I'm not supported. And I ended up, and this is no fault to my last marriage. I will say this, like, I would get a lot in that too. I mean, you kind of go into what you're used to. And it doesn't mean that, like, I don't feel like that my dad said those things to be mean. I think we have to watch how we say things. And so I try so hard now, if I'm saying something, especially to a teenage daughter or son or whatever, it's not that you're ridiculous, or you're stupid, or you're whatever. It's your behavior, or that action. It's calling out the action, or it's calling out the behavior, and not the person.
And saying, I know this isn't you.
Right.
I know that you are a better person than this. This was a bad choice
Right.
that you made. You aren't a bad kid,
Right.
kind of thing. And I've talked before about going into therapy when my kids were very young, because I felt like I would get so angry when they would misbehave in public. Like I would go into a rage. My mom never told me she was ashamed of me or anything when I was little. There was a pressure to be a good girl because she would point out every bad kid. It was like, oh, I'm so glad you're not like so and so over there because they run in church. I'm so glad you're not like so and so because they scream, and I'm glad you don't do this. I'm glad you don't do that. Like, it was like I felt on alert all the time as a child looking around. Now, she wasn't doing that on purpose, and I don't think she was a narcissist, but that was a thing there was always this fear of I have to be good enough. And so then when my kids were born, I felt that for them, like if my mom was alive, she would be so embarrassed at the way my kids are acting. And I had to let go of that, of saying, okay, no, they're toddlers. This is normal.
But you had to think about that,
I did.
right?
I had to think about that.
Perpetuation.
Yeah.
So obviously something in your mom's life caused her to start looking at all these things. Like I think about my dad, I talk about that trauma and I think in many ways, my dad was brilliant. He was a brilliant businessman. He, very intelligent. But there were things in his past childhood. I mean, there's a whole story. I could lay out the whole story of that side of my family, that it was all unfortunate circumstances, right? I don't want to blame any one person, but my dad was not brought up necessarily with the love of his mother. She was a great grandmother to me, but in his early years, she wasn't necessarily the greatest for him as a mother.
Right.
And so in talking about getting stuck in that emotional, mentality of a certain age, now that I think about it, I mean, my dad was, gosh, 60, 70 years old and reacting like that child.
Yes.
And that is how he would, and he would, well, I guess you just don't love me. And oh, nobody cares about me, and all these things, and to make you feel bad. But then also just the putting down the sarcasm that we were supposed to take as fine.
For this, I sacrificed so much for you. Or why aren't you grateful to me? How could you walk away from me? I'm nothing without you. I'm so lonely if you're not here. I have nothing without you. like all of that is like, oh, you're the parent, I'm the kid. Like, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't
Right.
be that way.
No.
But like you said, we don't know. I mean, you know some for your dad, but it's like, you don't know what his mom went
Well,
through.
I only know that I even know because I actively went and started asking and searching and looking into it. We've been doing Hopeful Hearts for 14 years. And beyond that, before I even started this, I had that in me to go, why? Like, why is this happening? Why are we this way? What is going on here? Because I know that my dad had great love for me. My gosh, in the last 3 months of his life were fantastic. And there's a whole clarity there. And, I know that even like, let's say in my first marriage, and I know that there was great love there, but there's also aspects that I brought into that I needed to figure out, and aspects that he brought into that maybe he has or hasn't figured out. Yeah, I don't know. Right. Yeah. But I mean,
it's not your business anymore.
It isn't my business anymore. You're right. It's not. But I think again, that's why I'll go back to it's so important for us to be responsible for us, for who we are, and for our future behaviors. Like, we can't blame who we are. I can't blame who I am on my mom and dad.
No.
I really can't.
No.
Even though maybe some of their actions caused me to feel a certain neglect at a time, or to, that I got, yes, their actions possibly caused certain aspects of my life, but I cannot, that is a victim if I keep blaming them for that.
Right.
And I have survived that, but then now it's thriving. Thriving is when you start saying, okay, I'm not going to keep putting all the blame on them. I do need to start owning up to my own actions. I'm an adult. I need to own up to who I am, what I can overcome, what I can work on, and what I can say, okay, I choose to not have this behavior anymore, or I choose not to allow that to trigger me, or to work on that trigger,
It would be like if I chopped your right hand off and you were like, well, I can never write again. I can never type again. I can never do anything because I was right-handed and Tamara chopped my hand off. And was it wrong of me to chop your hand off? Yes. But do you go hungry? Do you quit communicating? Do you like, you have to learn how to use your left hand. You have to learn other ways to figure it out, how to take care of yourself. And it's the exact same thing with mental health. Was it fair that someone abused you? No. Was it fair that someone abused me? No. Do I get to use that forever and say, well, I can't be better. I can't thrive in this world because of what you did to me? We have to get to a point where we go, no, okay, yes, this happened, but I'm not going to live as a victim anymore. I am going to learn to overcome this.
Amen. Amen. And that's the biggest, aspect of why I even started Hopeful Hearts so long ago. And I know that why Tamara joined on this crusade of helping people have their voice is because, we can't live as victims, and we can't blame everybody else. And, it's so much, we have a, what's the word I'm going to use? Obligation.
For responsibility.
Yeah. To learn more about, what is it that has caused, that I am feeling the way I'm feeling, responding the way I'm responding, reacting, find out what that is in the past. And if it might be an unfortunate thing that some things have been done to you, or you were brought up in a certain situation, or there was a neglect from a parent, or the lack of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? All the things. It helps to know that. It helps to, but you have to, then it's now your responsibility to take that and say, okay, I've got an understanding. Now I need to figure out what I can do different.
Yes.
what can I do different? You don't have to perpetuate what you've been brought up in.
Right.
You don't have to perpetuate the victimhood of having been, whatever, taken advantage of, all the things, right? All that laundry list. You can. I'm proof. She's proof. We've got a whole board of people. We're about to have a board meeting here. We're all proof that you can rise above. You can make a choice to say, I need to do different. I'm going to do different.
You
I'm
get
going
to
do
be the
better.
cycle breaker.
Yeah.
You get to be the one that says, not only am I going to make sure my life is better, that I'm going to be the healthiest version of me that God has created to me to be, but also I am not going to let this go on to the next generation. I'm not going to let my children carry this, or my nieces and nephews. I'm not going to pass this on in my work environment. It's a big thing in office places too, where you go, once somebody starts healing, it changes the way the team functions. It changes the way business is run. We get to be the ones to say, it stops with me, and thriving starts with me.
Amen. Amen. And it will help too if you can look at the people within your own network, within your work environment, within your family. Granted, we have to have healthy boundaries. So maybe there's some people you need to have that healthy boundary that you're not around as much anymore because they are not taking ownership of who they are, what they need to do. But on the other hand, let's start having a little compassion and understanding. And before we go, oh my gosh, you are crazy and I need you.
Right.
Maybe what is, what's behind that? If you want to put that much effort into somebody, not everybody in your life needs that much effort, and that's okay. So I'm not telling you that every single person needs to have that kind, but I'm just saying, show compassion.
Yeah.
Give yourself grace and give other people grace. So.
Yes. And on that, I think we will start wrapping this up. If you would like to know more about Hopeful Hearts Ministry, you can visit us at hopefulheartsministry.org. You can find us on Instagram, on Facebook. You can find us
on TikTok.
You can
post as much as I should.
And you can find us on YouTube. We're just glad you're here. You can listen to this podcast. You can listen to our other seasons. We have 2 previous seasons besides this one. You can listen to us on Apple, Spotify. We're just glad that you're here, and we hope that you have a blessed day.
Yeah. God bless.
That's it. Hey, and join us if you're watching this live. Join us at the Union Kitchen.
If you're here in Kingwood, it's off 59. You can go either North Park or Kingwood Drive, but it's down 59, the feeder.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Thanks everybody for watching. Hey, Tiffany.